Welcome everyone to NoDQ&A Video, the official Q&A video series of NoDQ.com. I've been doing this for many years now. I started the NoDQ&A as a tech series back in 2011, and then in 2012, actually I started the Q&A I think in 2010, and then in 2011 transition to video. It's been a long time. I'm getting forgetful in my old age. 13, 14 years now of these Q&As, and I've been watching wrestling a lot longer than that. I remember the very first WrestleMania as a little kid. Here we are, 41 WrestleManias later. WrestleMania week is upon us. Shout out to everyone watching, whether it's live or on demand. I appreciate your viewership and support. Now, if you are watching live, super chats are very much appreciated. They help out the channel. They support me. I very much appreciate it. They take priority. If you send in a super chat, any wrestling question you have, it will be answered as soon as possible. I guarantee it will be answered. I do have some email questions I would like to get through. Thank you to everybody that emailed me questions. Now, Roger B had sent in a super chat on a previous stream, but it was a topic that was complicated, and I decided to save it for no DQ&A video. Roger B basically wanted to know my thoughts on the Booker T and Swerve Strickland drama. Long story short, they were arguing about representation in wrestling. Booker T said that he was treated very well in WWE, and then Swerve had to mention that time that Vince McMahon used a certain slur towards Booker T, or right in front of Booker T, I should say. He used it at Cena, and Booker T came in and said, "Tell me he did not just say that." It was, I believe, from the 2005 Survivor Series. It was controversial then, definitely controversial now. And then it kept going with these guys. Swerve Strickland, after the Dynasty pay-per-view, he went out in front of the live crowd and said, "F Booker T." And then Booker T did his podcast and said he basically felt sorry for Swerve, and he more or less ended it. I think Booker T is a master at stirring the pot, as a lot of podcasters are. You have to keep in mind, these older wrestlers doing the podcasts, it keeps them relevant. It keeps them in the headlines. I think that's what happened here with Booker T, and Swerve took the bait, and it went back and forth a little bit. I don't really necessarily pick either side. I'm sure Booker T was treated well in WWE, but at the same time, they did do some questionable angles. Remember Triple H and Booker T leading up to WrestleMania 19? Triple H was talking about how you people just carry my bags, and then Booker T ended up losing. But at the end of the day, Booker T is just doing his job. He gets a script, he does it, and in wrestling, especially back then, they would push the envelope to draw heat, and that's what Triple H was doing. Maybe it would have been a better decision for Booker T to come out on top, but back then it was the Triple H reign of terror. I don't necessarily think either guy is in the wrong or right. It was just an argument that got a little bit out of hand, not really sure what it was meant to accomplish. And then they were arguing about that VLAD podcaster, and they shouldn't be on that show. That guy was controversial. It just spiraled out of control. But that's wrestling for you. And I think in Booker T's case, he was trying to keep himself in the headlines as much as possible. Thank you for that, Roger B. Now, I want to give a shout out to Ian, who emailed me a few questions. This first one is, "Hey Aaron, happy WrestleMania week and happy early Easter." Ian says, "Is it possible the biggest swerve," and we're not talking about Strickland, "for Paul Heyman at WrestleMania 41 is not joining Seth Rollins or not choosing a side but rather staying with Roman Reigns. I do not think Heyman will turn against Roman Reigns at this point. Now, he could end up going with Seth Rollins, but as I've talked about on other streams, the fact that Rollins looked so strong on Raw and Reigns has looked weak, my gut feeling is Roman Reigns is winning the match. Heyman, I feel like, will probably have something to do in this match as far as a big moment. Triple H himself said they're all about making moments at WrestleMania. Heyman's going to be in the ring. He's going to be conflicted. Heyman has outright said he's not going to be disloyal to Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. He's in CM Punk's corner, but he might be tired of being in the middle and having to be the prize for these guys, and he might just throw his hands up and say he's done. But yes, it would be surprising to see Heyman betray CM Punk and go back with Roman Reigns, and Roman Reigns is once again a heel. That would be interesting. Although Roman Reigns is selling a ton of merchandise right now, there's really not a necessity as far as turning him heel. But if they did, it could work out for Roman Reigns and have him try to reclaim his past glory, and he has Heyman back. Maybe he forms a new bloodline. They could do that to keep the bloodline going. Maybe we eventually get The Rock coming back as a babyface against Roman Reigns. Who knows? It would surprise me, though. My expectation is babyface Roman Reigns wins, gets his win back, takes a couple months off, and then comes back for the summer to either challenge John Cena or maybe Cody Rhodes for that rubber match. Thank you for that question. And now, Wonky23 sent in this email question. Thank you for that. The question is, do you think there is still time to add a stipulation to the triple threat at WrestleMania in the Roman Reigns, CM Punk, and Seth Rollins match? It seems odd booking with nothing on the line. Triple H actually brought this up in this interview he did with Peter Rosenberg, which is on the WWE YouTube channel. And he said normally he thinks a triple threat match should have something on the line. He outright said this and said it was a risk. They were taking a chance booking this match, and he tried to explain how all three of them are tied in together, and it made it a unique scenario to do this triple threat without a stipulation. I don't think they're going to add anything at this point. If they were going to, my belief is that it would have happened. On Raw, they would have said, oh, by the way, we're adding this to the match. I don't know why they didn't. Why not say the winner gets a match on the Raw after WrestleMania? I argued for that, but nothing. Like, that would have been nice, or even just a future title match. Not necessarily Money in the Bank, but you could just say the winner gets a title match, their place of choosing, their venue, wherever they want it, and they can basically call their shot, but it's not like Money in the Bank where they can do it, spur of the moment. You have to announce it and you set up the match for a big event. They could have done that. I don't understand why they didn't. Would have added a little bit more drama too, because we know that all three guys want that world title. Roman Reigns wants to be back on the top of the empire, and CM Punk wants his title match. Like, I think it would have added more intrigue. So I don't know why they didn't do it. Maybe they feel like they don't want to do too much. They want the focus to be on the Paul Heyman storyline. We'll see if they add anything on SmackDown or even the day of the show. I don't think they will. Shout out to Building Nexus. Building Nexus sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. This question goes right to the top of the queue. If you send in a super chat, I will answer it right away. Building Nexus says, how big of a rub could linking up with The Rock be? It's massive. The Rock is the highest paid movie star in the world. He's a household name. He's one of the most recognizable faces in wrestling. You could take a lot of people, and if they're paired up with The Rock, they're going to be a bigger deal. Even one of their top tier stars, like a Drew McIntyre, if we ever got that storyline where Drew McIntyre worked with The Rock and sold his soul, that would elevate Drew McIntyre. I mean, pretty much anybody could be elevated from working with The Rock. The Rock is The Rock, one of a kind. You're associated with The Rock, you get taken to a whole new level. It's massive. It's very significant if you're doing something with The Rock. Of course, the concern about it could be, well, what if The Rock completely outshines that person? That's up to The Rock. The Rock is a one-of-a-kind entertainer. If he wants to outshine somebody, he can. But if he's there and he's willing to focus on building that person up, then there are a few others that can be as effective at giving somebody the rub than The Rock. Thank you for that. I appreciate it, Building Nexus. Let's get to the next email question we have from Upa Manu. I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly. I apologize if I did not. It says, hey, Aaron, longtime viewer. If John Cena costs Cody Rhodes, how would you book him? Or if John Cena defeats Cody Rhodes, I should say, how would you book him as a heel champion? A cowardly heel or someone who gets the job done by any means? Also, who do you think can dethrone Cena as the champion except for Cody Rhodes? Great question. Whether Cena wins or loses, you have several big marquee matches that I hope they do before he retires. And what if this retirement ends up being a sham and he's actually going to continue after the end of the year? If he's a heel, he could do that. We're all thinking, well, Cena's got to turn back babyface by the end of the year, but there's so many big matches, I just don't want to see them miss out. Like, this Cena run has a lot of potential for marquee matches throughout the year. I mean, think about it. You got John Cena versus CM Punk. I feel like that is going to happen fairly soon, almost a guarantee. CM Punk went out there and cut that promo on not Roman Reigns. He cut the promo on John Cena. You got John Cena versus CM Punk, John Cena versus Roman Reigns, John Cena versus a babyface Seth Rollins if Cena stays heel and Rollins doesn't turn. You got John Cena versus Damian Priest potentially. And then, of course, you do have that John Cena versus Cody Rhodes rematch, which could happen. If it's not Cody Rhodes dethroning Cena, what about somebody like a Braun Breaker? If they want to put the seal of approval on Breaker, he beats John Cena and retires him and becomes the world champion. And that's the passing of the torch to the new face of the company. There's an idea too. Like, I'd love to see Braun Breaker be that guy. If it's not Braun Breaker or Cody, maybe it's Roman Reigns. Maybe Roman Reigns goes up against heel Cena and beats him later this year, maybe SummerSlam. Cena turns babyface and then goes off into the sunset as a good guy. But I think John Cena's got a lot of big matches, which is why I think he has to win that world title, because you can do all those matches for the title. He might not necessarily win at WrestleMania, but I feel like he's got to get it. If not WrestleMania, maybe he wins it at Backlash or sometime over the summer and has a short run with it. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Daryl sent in a 35 ZAR super chat. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Daryl says, ignore storyline. Was Jey Uso as the Royal Rumble winner dumb for not picking Cody? Bigger payday, main eventing with Cody, becoming the champion. If we're talking about in storyline terms or kayfabe, yeah, it was dumb. Jey Uso obviously has no choice in real life. You know, he's just doing what they're booking him to do. But yes, Jey Uso should be going for the biggest title and not going for the secondary title. You had Gunther losing to Cody Rhodes, pretty much establishing Gunther as the secondary champion. The big problem was that they said the winner of the Royal Rumble gets the main event of WrestleMania. I've mentioned this several times on other streams. Just get rid of that and you solve this problem. But yes, you would think if the Rumble winner can face any champion, they're going to go with the biggest champion, the match that they know is going to be the main event of WrestleMania. They're not going to pick Gunther over Cody Rhodes, especially when Cody Rhodes was established as the top guy and main evented the 2 previous WrestleManias. So yes, it did make Jey Uso look foolish, but you know, as you mentioned, I tried to ignore it. The story with Gunther, it was very personal for him. He had something to prove. But yeah, I would think that you would want to go for the top champion and be in the match, close out the show is the biggest goal. Psycho Jet Black, shout out to Psycho Jet Black who sent in a $2 super chat. No question, but just a comment. If Jey Uso picked Cody, people would still complain. That's the internet for you. Of course, there would be people complaining. I mean, Jey Uso winning was going to get complaints regardless of who the champion was, just because he has his critics. I was at the Royal Rumble, though, and that place came unglued when Jey Uso won. There was a very positive vibe in the building when he picked up the win, and that was 60+ thousand people at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. They were firmly behind Jey Uso, but of course you got the people on the internet complaining, and Triple H has outright called out critics, people complaining all the time, saying you got to stop criticizing and just be a fan. Now that's a whole other discussion we can have, but I do understand where he's coming from with that. And yeah, it's like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Hard to win over everybody. And all you can really do is try to win over as many people as possible and try and draw with the person that you think can bring people to the arenas and buy the merchandise. And they think Jey Uso is one of those guys. All right, Building Nexus sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that, Building Nexus. I appreciate it. Building Nexus says, what if Cody Rhodes versus John Cena 2 was an I Quit match? That is very interesting. Throughout John Cena's career, his whole slogan was never give up, and he couldn't do it. He was a good guy. He could never give up in a match. But now, since he's a bad guy, it would be logical to see him quit because he's not the same John Cena that he once was. If there was ever a time to justify John Cena quitting, it would be him as a bad guy versus Cody. I do like that idea at some point, a John Cena I Quit match with him as a heel, and you have that opportunity for him to actually lose an I Quit match, although they could still play it up as John Cena has never given up throughout his entire career, and he finally does at the very end, but then he has his little turnaround and asks the fans for forgiveness and all that stuff. But I do like the idea, Building Nexus. Psycho Jet Black sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you, Psycho. I appreciate it. Psycho says, hey, Slapjack, can you play a guitar? No, I actually did try when I was younger, but I don't have the ability to do that. I don't have the fingers for it. I just never could get it going. But as the son of a guitar player, I was definitely exposed to it, and I did try, but wasn't my thing, and I give credit to the people that can do it. I probably had about as much guitar playing skills as Jeff Jarrett. I would have liked to have gotten to the level of an Elias, but couldn't make it happen. Thank you for that, Psycho Jet Black. Had to somehow spin it into a wrestling topic. Psycho Jet Black sent in another $5 super chat. Thank you, Psycho. I appreciate the super chats. It does help out the channel. Thank you, guys. Psycho Jet Black says, what Vince McMahon quotes that you have found annoying over the years? Mine are, we put smiles on people's faces and we make movies every week. I think the one that I found annoying was anything can happen in the World Wrestling Federation in the mid-90s. What's funny is by the time they stopped using that line is when things actually started getting unpredictable. But I'm talking about like 93, 94. Vince McMahon was like, anything can happen in the World Wrestling Federation. And then we have Mantar coming out there. And then we have Doink and Dink versus Bam Bam Bigelow and Luna Vachon. Stuff like that when Vince is saying anything can happen in the World Wrestling Federation. I hated that phrase. But then they actually started doing unpredictable things during the Attitude Era and stopped using that line. The smiles on people's faces was a funny one. Didn't really bother me, though. But yeah, that one. There was another one he said, like, that he knows better than the fans what they want. That didn't annoy me, but I thought that one was amusing and maybe true to a degree. You know, it felt a little bit arrogant. He says that he knows what the fans want more than they do, but he was probably right to a degree. But he also, here's one. The one where he said, I'm a good listener. I think this was on Stone Cold's podcast, like in 2014. He's like, I'm a good listener. And I'm like, you listen, but that's pretty much all you do. You really don't do anything beyond that. That was an interesting question, Psycho Jet Black. Thank you for that. All right, let's get to Sun Goshuaku, longtime No DQ contributor, good friend of mine, great guy. He says, name one male and one female WWE wrestler who you thought wouldn't have a great WrestleMania career match-wise from the start, but they ended up with or currently are having a great resume of WrestleMania matches regardless of win-loss record. My male pick is Kofi Kingston. Imagine seeing Kofi Kingston in 2008 ECW. Could you imagine he'd go on to be one half of one of the greatest tag teams of all time? Could you imagine him winning a world title? I didn't think that would happen when Kofi Kingston debuted, and he turned out to have a fantastic career, and he might have another moment this weekend at WrestleMania 41. For women, that's a little more difficult to say. I would probably go with Becky Lynch because when she debuted on the main roster, she was pretty much considered the bottom of the four horsewomen. People were really high on Sasha Banks, Charlotte Flair, and pretty high on Bayley too. And it felt like of the four of them, Becky was the one people thought would be least likely to be a top tier star. I always thought she had a lot of potential though when she debuted. I'm like, she's got something here, but I didn't think she would reach the level she got to. Like, I didn't think she would be the main event of WrestleMania. I would not have been able to predict that in 2015. So I would say Becky Lynch. Tiger sent in a €2 super chat. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Tiger says, how did you feel when Bill Goldberg debuted in WWE in 2003? I was happy to see him. Like, it's always cool to see somebody from WCW come into WWE. But I had a couple of thoughts at the time. First of all, they were a little late. He should have been brought in during the Invasion angle. They should have bought out his contract, paid him the big bucks, and got him in there. That was a huge missed opportunity for the Invasion. By the time he came in 2003, it's like, cool, he's back. And I was initially happy, but then I think like the second week in, they had Goldust with him in a backstage segment, and Goldberg put on a wig. And at that point, I'm like, what are you doing here? And then the week after that, they had The Rock beating the crap out of Goldberg and outsmarting him, making Goldberg look like a complete doofus, a fool, an absolute fool, getting played by The Rock. It was that episode in Atlanta right before Backlash, just making Goldberg look like a dumbass. At that point, I felt like you've already dropped the ball on this guy. What are you doing? And it was hard for me to care about him. And then at SummerSlam, they had him destroying everybody in the chamber. And I'm like, oh, Goldberg's back. We're finally getting the old Goldberg. Then he loses to Triple H. And at that point, I'm like, might as well part ways with the guy. Like, you've completely ruined him. That's my thought on Goldberg in 2003. City by the Bay sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. It says, Gunther as a future babyface, and who feuds with Jey Uso next? Well, I could see them doing a rematch after WrestleMania. If Jey wins the title, Gunther gets a rematch, and it wouldn't shock me if Gunther won the title back. And it was, in fact, a short run for Jey. You know, give him the feel-good moment, but then put the title back on Gunther. That would not surprise me. But I do think there is potential with Gunther as a babyface. He's very credible. And I think the fans love him. And if Brock Lesnar, who's this nasty heel for all these years, can be a beloved babyface, I think Gunther could as well. You just got to make sure you don't take away the mean streak. You know, he's got to still have that mean streak. Randy Orton pulls it off nicely. Randy Orton, one of the all-time best heels in WWE, but he could be an effective babyface as well. Gunther absolutely could. So yes, I do see him turning face one day. And if he doesn't face Jey right away, you could do Braun Breaker. I did mention before that Braun Breaker, I see him losing that IC title and probably moving on to a main event storyline. You could put him in there. If you bring back Rusev, you could put Rusev in there versus Jey Uso. Whenever Bronson Reed is ready to go, you could put Bronson Reed versus Jey Uso. Like, you could have several big, meaty guys going up against Jey and trying to win the title from him if they decide to go with a longer championship run for Jey. And maybe it'll be Braun Breaker that beats Jey and not Gunther. We'll see. Thank you for that. And now, Building Nexus sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you guys again for the super chats. Much appreciated. Building Nexus says, do you think WrestleMania will be the death of the Judgment Day? I hope so, but I'm not counting on it. I really do think it's time to end the Judgment Day. Unless they go through with this new member story, and they have been teasing it, which makes me think it's not ending. And it's going to depend on who the new member is, if this group can get back on track again. They need somebody significant. You know, it cannot be J.D. McDonough just coming back. You need a credible leader. Could it be Karrion Kross as the new member? Give him something to do? Maybe. Could it be Rusev? I don't know if Rusev would fit in the group or not. Looks like Aleister Black is going to be on SmackDown. Otherwise, he could fit in with the group unless he ends up getting drafted to Raw. It just depends on who they have if they're doing this new member storyline. I don't see it dying, though, because of this storyline. I think it will continue. Balor or Dominic might get kicked out at some point. J.D. McDonough will be back relatively soon, and I think they'll continue on with it. But it does feel like it either needs a significant change or it's time to do away with the group and move on to something new. All right, let's get back to the email questions. So Ian asked me this one, says, What are your thoughts on the AWA? Said he's been watching them on the network, and it's such a tragedy that Vern Gagne let Hulk Hogan go to the WWF, and they never really recovered after that major fumble. I don't think Vern Gagne really could understand the vision that Vince McMahon had. I mean, if the other promoters were one step ahead of Vince, they would have come up with the idea first to go national. And you could be like, well, they were all respectful promoters and, not trying to step on anybody's toes. Maybe he just didn't have the so-called ruthless aggression that Vince had. AWA definitely had some potential to be a major powerhouse if they had tried to go national. They had Hulk Hogan coming off of Rocky III, and they had Andre the Giant. They had a lot of guys that Vince ended up bringing in 83 and 84. Other than that, AWA wasn't that great. I mean, I remember the Wrestle Rock Rumble, but I just remember that music video. I don't really care for anything else that they did. I mean, they were an okay wrestling promotion, but not too great. And they ended up going under. Couldn't keep up with the competition. Thank you for that. And let's get back to Tiger, who sent in a €2 super chat. Thank you, Tiger. Describe the exact moment you saw Hulk Hogan turn heel. Well, are we talking about 1996 Bash at the Beach, or just the moment I thought, like, yeah, Hogan's a bad guy? I mean, you could go back to like the 1992 Royal Rumble, and I could see like, there's Hogan turning heel, causing Sid to get eliminated after Hogan was out, being a sore loser. You could argue that was the moment I saw the Hogan heel turn. But even as a kid, let's talk about Bash at the Beach. Even the moment he walked out there, I knew it was coming. I didn't have to hear Bobby Heenan. I knew enough about wrestling at that point. And there were already rumors about it. There were already rumors of Hogan turning bad guy and changing things up. It was already something that, if you read the newsletters and you read things in the infancy of the internet, you knew that something might be happening here. But yeah, when he comes out there, like, immediately, like, you could just feel something's off when he comes out there. And then Bobby Heenan's like, whose side is he on? And some people hated that line. They felt that it gave it away, but I always liked it because I felt like that was what Heenan would say. Heenan's character believed Hulk Hogan was always up to no good, and that time Heenan was actually right. But yeah, pretty much when he went out there, I figured, okay, something's going down here. He's not coming out there and all is well. Like his body language, everything was different. So yeah, I sensed it before it happened, for sure. Pretty much the moment he walked out there. All right, Psycho Jet Black. Psycho Jet Black sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that. Says, what were the last bad WWE and AEW pay-per-views / PLEs? I don't think AEW ever put out a bad pay-per-view. Let me just throw that out there. Like, I never felt once that they ripped me off. Like, they were always, at the very minimum, pretty good. And most of the time, they were great. The weakest AEW pay-per-view was probably one of the pandemic ones. I mean, really, I think that was the last time we got lackluster shows from WWE. The All Out in 2020, the one where Matt Hardy got hurt, that one was a good show, but not great. So that was maybe the weakest one. And I think WWE pay-per-views were pretty consistent from when crowds returned all the way through. Like there were some rough ones during the pandemic when they had either no fans or the Thunderdome. What's the one where The Miz was abducted by zombies? They had the zombies surrounding ringside. I'm not sure if that was Backlash or something in 2021. That might have been the last bad one. Although I just remember that moment. I don't know if the rest of the pay-per-view was okay or not. A couple of the 2021s were rough, like Extreme Rules, the horror show was not too good. No, there were several of them. One of those 2021s probably, and people were saying Backlash 2021. I honestly don't remember too much, but think of it this way: that's what I remember from that show is the Miz being taken away by the zombies, and he was fine the next week. They missed an opportunity. Like they should have had the Miz the next day on Raw actually be in zombie attire. Miz converted to a zombie, and then like John Morrison can give him an antidote or something. Come up with some goofy gimmick. They should have had Miz as a zombie at least for one show. If they were going to bother doing that whole angle in the first place, they should have gone all the way with it. All right, this is an email that comes from Matthias. He says, what was the best and worst WCW pay-per-view in 2000? And this was his first question. Trying to find the best WCW pay-per-view of 2000. Yikes, that one's rough. Because I cannot think of too many decent ones. I saw a lot of them, and many of them were very lackluster. The worst one was probably New Blood Rising, because of the whole triple threat, breaking the fourth wall. It was terrible. That one was bad. Great American Bash was bad with the Goldberg heel turn. Best one was maybe Fall Brawl. You had a really bad Jim Duggan heel turn, but that Scott Steiner and Bill Goldberg match was all right. And Booker T's match was all right. So, yeah, Fall Brawl was a little bit better. Halloween Havoc was all right. Yeah, probably Fall Brawl was the best of the bunch, but that's not really saying much. Fall Brawl, I think, was still a below-average pay-per-view. All right, Psycho Jet Black sent in a $2 super chat, says, how would you revive Austin Theory's career? Great question. What I would have done, I would have turned him babyface several months ago and had him feud with Grayson Waller. I would have pulled the trigger on that. They were teasing it. I want to know. Somebody needs to confront Triple H. Ask him what the hell happened to that storyline. They were teasing it and teasing it. What was their excuse? You know, Triple H is like, well, people can get hurt. Things happen. What happened here? Why did they not pull the trigger on the Austin Theory babyface turn? That might have been able to save him. At this point, nobody cares. You waited too long, and now I think that the ship has sailed, and there's no point in doing that. Austin Theory is basically just a punching bag at this point. I don't know what you can do. Like you had a possibility, and you didn't capitalize on it. You didn't follow through. I would have turned a babyface. You could do it now, but I feel like it's too little, too late. Shout out to Tiger, who sent in a €2 super chat. Thank you for that, Tiger. Tiger says, how did you feel when you knew Brock Lesnar was leaving in 2004? I was very surprised. It took me by surprise. I was caught off guard. The reason being is that I felt like he had really found himself as an all-around performer. Like when he started in WWE, he was a bit one-dimensional. You know, he's out there, Brock Lesnar, I'm big monster, Hulk smash. But then, you know, by early 2004, he started to come into his own. And he came out there, he was mocking Eddie Guerrero, doing the dancing. And I thought that was giving him a couple of layers. He seemed like he was finally being comfortable being a personality and cutting promos. You know, he had been split up from Paul Heyman and he was doing his own thing, but he was starting to cut promos, and it felt like he was starting to get comfortable doing the sports entertainment stuff. And then all of a sudden, they say he's leaving and he doesn't want to be there anymore. It shocked me. You know, it kind of reminds me of when Samantha Irvin left last year. Like, she's doing great work, and then all of a sudden she's leaving. She says she didn't like doing it. It was shocking, and that's how I felt about Brock in early 2004. Like, this guy's just coming into his own here. Why is he leaving? That definitely shocked me, and it was disappointing, and it was a huge blow to WWE when they lost him. They had to turn JBL and create that character to try and make up for Lesnar being gone. Wasn't nearly as good as Brock Lesnar. I'll just say that. All right, let's get to the email questions. So this one comes from Matthew. Matthew says, if Roman Reigns versus The Rock doesn't happen and Roman Reigns versus Solo was the end of the Bloodline story, how would you grade it? And how much does not having The Rock and Roman Reigns hurt the overall storyline of the Bloodline? I think the Bloodline has been one of the best stories in wrestling history. It's a top tier storyline. I cannot give it 10 out of 10 if The Rock is not involved with Roman Reigns and doing a match. Like, to me, that would have been the best way to end it. Roman Reigns versus The Rock. Who is the true head of the table? They could still do it, but the more time that passes, the less impactful it's going to be. I would give it a 9. A 10 if we could get Roman Reigns versus The Rock. But as it stands right now, damn excellent storyline, but just missing that one little thing, which is not a little thing, The Rock versus Roman Reigns. Just missing the final inning. Like, it feels just a little bit incomplete without that Rock and Roman storyline at WrestleMania, or even I'll take it at SummerSlam at this point. I just think we need that match before it's all said and done to conclude this epic saga of the Bloodline. Shout out to Psycho Jet Black, who sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that, Psycho. I appreciate it. Psycho says, what boring wrestlers became entertaining over time? That's a good question. That's a hard one to answer off the top of my head. I do think of Jeff Jarrett. When he started, he was quite bland, and I think that once he got into the don't piss me off era, he really started to shine a bit. I mean, he was never the most charismatic guy or the most entertaining persona, but I think Jeff Jarrett, once he started doing the storyline with Mae Young and all that in China, he was getting pretty entertaining for a guy that didn't have all that much charisma or personality. Jeff Jarrett is somebody who definitely comes to mind. There were others where they tried, I think somebody like Chris Benoit definitely got more entertaining. Like, he's one of the best, or was one of the best of all time. But when he was in WCW, he was kind of bland. And in WWE, I think he did get a little bit better on the promos and everything. And there were a couple other guys where I felt like they broke out of their shell a little bit, and at first they didn't bring much to the table. They were just kind of there. But over time, they got better. And even somebody like Eddie Guerrero, when he started in '96, he was a really good wrestler, but I didn't find him all that entertaining beyond the wrestling. And as time went on, once he turned heel, he got more charismatic, and he really got to shine as a personality. William Regal's another one. I think once he went to WWE, he started to build his personality. It didn't work for everybody. Like, Dean Malenko went to WWE and never really got all that much more entertaining. Same thing with Lance Storm. So it didn't work for a lot of them. But guys like William Regal going to WWE, he was definitely able to branch out and expand a little bit with his character. All right, Building Nexus sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that, Building Nexus. Says, how would you book John Cena's last match? That's a tough question to answer because I don't know what they have planned necessarily beyond John Cena's got a potential 17th World Championship run, and I think he will get it. I think he needs to put over somebody at the end. Like, I'd love to see somebody like Braun Breaker get the last match with John Cena. Randy Orton doesn't need it. Cody Rhodes doesn't need it, but I think it would really be something special for John Cena to truly pass the torch in his final match. So if it was my call, you're asking me my opinion, I think it should be somebody like a Braun Breaker or somebody who they're going to push as the future of WWE. That would be ideal, that Cena goes out and just like when The Rock raised Cena's hand, Cena raises the hand of the new guy, although he's done that with Cody already, but now he's feuding with Cody. Whatever guy that they have planned out to be the future of the company for the next 10, 15 years, could it be somebody like an Obafemi? I don't know. We'll have to see where things play out over the next 6 months or how they play out over the next 6 months. But yeah, if it was me, I'd like to have somebody, this young guy who's going to be the future of the company for the next 10, 15 years, beat Cena, and Cena raises his hand on the way out. That's what I would do. All right, we got this question here from Ian. We got a couple more here. We're getting close to the hour, so last opportunity to super chat if you have a burning question. Ian says, why does WWE call a lariat a clothesline even though it's a different move? Have a wonderful, fantastic day, and hopefully WrestleMania 41 over-delivers. I know that the lariat was a move used by Stan Hansen, and maybe that's why some announcers and people in WWE will call it a lariat as a tribute to him. You know, just like the Luthez press, you can have different names for that. I mean, there's always different names for moves. You got the rock bottom, which is also the Uranagi. I just think the lariat is, a nice little tribute to Stan Hansen. That's the move he was known for. And then, they would call the clothesline the Steiner line. I just think it's a tribute to Stan Hansen. That's why they call it a lariat and not a clothesline. Thank you for that, Ian. And now we'll get to this other question here from Matthias. He says, nothing against the natural disasters, but why hasn't Demolition gone in the WWE Hall of Fame? They were part of a lawsuit against WWE, and they were not on good terms with the company for several years. They just now, a month or two ago, whenever it was, they signed that Legends deal. And I'm thinking WWE probably already planned out the Hall of Fame before Demolition signed the deal. You would have to think that is almost certainly happening next year. If it doesn't happen, then I'm going to be wondering what the hell. Like, the fans have been wanting this for the longest time. Demolition in the Hall of Fame. To me, it's a no-brainer. Like, I think they were a great team, and some people wrote them off as Legion of Doom knockoffs, but as a kid, I loved Demolition. They were one of my favorite acts in the company. So I think it'll happen next year. I would be shocked if it doesn't, now that they have officially signed the Legends deal. All right, we got one more here from Psycho Jet Black. Thank you, Psycho Jet Black, for the $5 super chat. I appreciate it. Says, do you think if Triple H never had the heart issues and didn't need a pacemaker, he would have probably been wrestling or at least taking bumps for wrestlers? Yes. If Triple H did not have his health problems in 2021, I think he definitely would have wrestled a few more matches. It seemed like he was being used every once in a while. when there was an opportunity to bring him back for a match. He was definitely winding down, though. He got hurt. Remember, he got injured at the 2018, I think it was Crown Jewel, right? That infamous show where Shawn Michaels came out of retirement. And Triple H got hurt. I don't think he had too many matches left. I think he was definitely winding down, but I could have seen him doing a match here and there, maybe one match at WrestleMania for a couple more years. He probably would have been done by now, but I think maybe 2022, 2023, he might have come back for one or two more matches. Like, I could have seen him going against the tribal chief Roman Reigns, where Roman Reigns is taken over and Triple H has to try to come in and take out Roman Reigns on behalf of the McMahon family, something like that, but wasn't meant to be. All right, we got one more question here from Hamp Connell. Shout out to Hamp. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. Hamp says, do you see the Dominick Mysterio and Finn Balor situation ultimately leading to a reunion of Dominic and Rey Mysterio versus Finn Balor and Carlito at SummerSlam? I could see Dominic turning babyface, but they're going to need to really play up on Dominic being sorry for everything that he did, and he's going to need to show that remorse and everything. So you got to do that storyline. Rey Mysterio, of course, he's going to forgive his son, but it'll need to be sincere and believable. I could see them doing that. I know some people are like, well, maybe Dominic turns babyface after he beats Rey in a father versus son retirement match for the mask. They could do that, but I would prefer if it was just Dominic turning, asks his father for forgiveness, and of course Rey will forgive his son, and you could put them as a team again. But you don't necessarily need to do that. Dominic can stand on his own now. Like, you can put him as a singles wrestler, and you don't really need to have him teaming up with his father again. Like, he can do his own thing. But yeah, they need a really good segment for that reunion. Like, remember Bret Hart and Owen Hart in 97 when Bret turned heel and they had their reunion? Like, it was very believable, and it was well executed. Like, if they do that with Dominic and Rey, I hope they can have a segment like that that's very compelling and it's believable, and that's what gets them back together. We'll have to see what happens. I mean, I'm not convinced that Dominic is turning face anytime soon, but I think that when they finally pull the trigger on it, it's going to be a really big deal. And he still may end up taking the mask one way or another. All right, we got one more here from Building Nexus. Building Nexus sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you for that. Says, if they do The Rock versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 42, should the storyline be the big finale of the Bloodline saga with all the former members involved? Yes, it should be the big finale regardless of when it is, whether it's SummerSlam or WrestleMania. I mean, I would like to see it whenever The Rock can do it, right? Triple H made a big deal about The Rock's schedule. Whenever they can get The Rock, I do think it should be the finale. And I do like that idea of having all the Bloodline out there, everybody at ringside, maybe even like a lumberjack type match. I'd be fine with that. And Roman Reigns himself also said that he's only got a couple years left in him. You know, next year his contract's up, and then he might wrestle for another year or two. So they got to pull the trigger on this soon. But Building Nexus, I definitely like that idea. I think that's a fitting way to end it, with all the Bloodline involved somehow, and maybe even have some of the family members at ringside. I think that would be great. All right, we got one more email question here from Marshall Leonard. Marshall says, what is your favorite wrestling event of all time, and what would you do to change it to make it better? Well, WrestleMania 17 is not my favorite event of all time. The reason being is the Steve Austin heel turn. So if I could not do that Austin heel turn, I would do that. So I could say WrestleMania 17 is my all-time favorite WrestleMania, because to me, that was one of the biggest booking missteps of all time, was that turn. Favorite wrestling event of all time? I really liked the 2002 SummerSlam. That's one of my favorite ones. And I can't really think of too much I would have changed about it. Like, I think they made a lot of the right booking decisions on that one. WrestleMania 17 is the best example, because to me, that is borderline greatest WWE event of all time. And yeah, I hated that ending with a passion. Shout out to Hamp Connell, who sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you, Hamp. I appreciate it. We'll make this the last one of the evening. Hamp says, if the winner of the three-way was to turn heel and form a two-man power trip with John Cena, who would you book for that spot out of the three? Definitely not CM Punk, because he already teased a match with John Cena. We want to see them fight. We don't want to see them as a team. Definitely not Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns is on his own. Like, it wouldn't make sense to me. The only person that I think could fit in that role would be Seth Rollins. And people were talking about, well, if Heyman turned on Roman Reigns and CM Punk and joined with Seth Rollins, the two of them could join the Rock's group and align with John Cena and form some sort of super faction. That would potentially work. Really, the only one could be Rollins. I don't see it being anybody else. But now I'm very doubtful that that's going to happen based off of the ending of Raw. We still could get it, though. As Vince McMahon would say, anything can happen in the WWE. So on that note, I will go ahead and wrap up this edition of No DQ&A video. We're right at the hour mark. Thank you all so much. Thank you for watching. Thank you to everybody that emailed questions, and a big thank you to everybody that super chatted questions. Thank you for helping out the channel. Much love and appreciation to you all. Stay tuned to NoDQ.com for WrestleMania 41 coverage, results on the website, and of course, I will be back here, NoDQ.com/YouTube, with my recaps. Spread the word. Tell a friend about the channel. The word of mouth goes a very long way. It's really helpful. So just tell a friend on any social media page you're on. Have them check out the channel. Take care, everybody. Enjoy WrestleMania. Say yes to NoDQ.com, and I will see you all next time.